I've got Jake and Kyle from Defining Wealth. Here I'm Cole. I'm one of the founders and the head of growth here at Move Health. And today we're going to talk about a problem that I think many advisors want to have, which is we got too many prospects. We've got too many people in the pipeline, and too many sounds like you guys are unprepared, and that's not the case. But I did, I did promise. I said this is going to feel like the conversation that happens after the webinar, and we were just having a lot of fun in the waiting room for the webinar, and so looking forward to continuing the conversation. But Jake, maybe give a quick intro to who you are, kind of give a high level of defining wealth, and then kick it over to Kyle, and then I've got some questions to ask, but I also think. I didn't get to this, but the housekeeping items. Yes, we're recording this. Yes, you will get the recording. Last but not least, I would love to interact with you all. That are kind of joining live. And so if there are questions that you have for Jake and Kyle, you can I think you guys said ask me anything, right? So fire away. We'll ask questions. One thing I love to do is I'd love to know where each of you are tuning in from. Kyle and Jake, I know you guys are in Tennessee. I'm in Indiana. Would love to know where you all are at. So we'll go from there. But Jake, I'll kick it over to you for a quick intro to yourself and to Defining Wealth, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. How's that for being a pro's pro at hosting a webinar there? Just take care of all the housekeeping up front. Like you'll get the recording. You can ask questions. That's great. Well, I'm Jake Gardner, if you can't read the tag there. Me and Kyle are co-founders here at Defining Wealth. And so my background is I met Kyle, this crazy dude somewhere on your screen, 10 years ago at Jackson National, and we became really good friends. My wife and I had moved down here right out of college to take that job. I was there for about a year and then quickly pivoted to the financial planning, wealth management industry, which is where I really wanted to be the whole time. To do that, my wife, we were having our first baby, right? So like any 23-year-old couple, we freaked out a little bit and we're like, we should be by family. Moved back up to Michigan, meandered our way down to Northwest Ohio in the Maumee, Toledo area, if anybody even knows where
What a
Maumee is.
what a what a deep cut. Anybody from the Maumee Valley out there, right? It's like
Yeah,
what a
yeah. Give me show of hands for the Maumee Valley. I'm sure there's dozens of us. So yeah, the that's where we were at for about 5, 6 years. I worked at a multi-billion-dollar wealth management firm up there, working with ultra high net worth or multifamily office type clients with the president of the firm up there. And Kyle and I had just kept this conversation going, like, what if we brought those principles and the wealth management firm that we would want to see for ourselves one day? What if we brought that to folks who really need it and offered it as a financial planning service that could grow into wealth management when they're ready? And so have spent a lot of time trying to solve that problem, serving pre-retirees, usually in the like 45 to 60 years old type range, and then folks who want to retire early. So that's where I'm from. That's who I am. Kyle, I'll kick it to you. I know you've got a little elevator pitch for yourself loaded up too.
We're gonna do our best. Nice, quick elevator ride. No, I've always felt that there was a gap. I was at Jackson a little bit longer than Jake was, and after I left Jackson, I'd owned part of a hybrid RIA broker dealer. So my time was always spent with advisors leading up into this. I had some clients technically defining wealth was a note on my phone in 2020. I was sitting there and I'm like, well, there's got to be something to do. And it took a couple of years of convincing Jake to move his family and his life back down to Nashville and do it. But
Hmm.
I knew that if I wanted to get to where I wanted to go, I can never be a one-man show. My dad's an advisor. This is his 45th year in the business. Very successful practice, but it's always been just him. So it's
Yeah.
been ingrained in me and from seeing it with other advisors that you can only go so far by yourself. And I knew I needed a partner, A, someone I could trust, and B, somebody who's good at the things that I am not. And it just so happened out that Jake and I think, are a good complement to that. And yeah, it certainly hasn't been easy, but it's been. I always kind of jokingly say it's starting to finally get fun because a lot of the hard stuff is out of the way. But there's
Yeah.
new challenges with that. There's new opportunities, and we'd love to share with folks. I think the things that we did right, but also a lot of the things that we wish we knew sooner. So happy
Yeah.
to chat about any of that today.
I love it. I love it. I see there's a some folks that are, kind of in the, there's Charleston, there's Boise, Idaho, but a Franklin native. Hey, Michael, Nashville, Dallas, Pinehurst. So good to see you guys all over the place. No Maumee Valley yet, but I grew up close by, Jake. We talked about this small world
Yep.
stuff. So, Kyle, one of the things that you said within that, kind of initial elevator ride, if I will, was you mentioned that, and I could misattribute this as kind of a Michael Scott-ish quote, but the idea of, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yeah.
And so maybe give me a quick breakdown, Kyle, of kind of how you and Jake, as founders of the firm, how you kind of divided and conquered, and what initially, going in with a business partner. There's a lot of business partnerships that fail, right? Ultimately, most of them fail. It's higher than divorce rates, right? And so, tell me about how you guys kind of bifurcated what each of your roles are within the team now.
Yeah, I mean, it naturally evolved to where I thought it would have to. In the beginning, I was kind of jokingly use the hat analogy, where if
Sure.
I wasn't doing it or Jake wasn't doing it, it wasn't getting done. So we conquered a lot. I don't, or we divided a lot. I don't know how much we conquered at the same time there, but you
There was
know,
some conquering.
a little bit, yeah. But here's what I would say, Cole, is like for me personally, I got into this because I wanted to build a business. I didn't necessarily get into this because I just wanted to be a financial planner.
Yeah.
Just personally, there's a lot better planners out there than me. Jake was the best planner that I knew, and somebody who had the experience from the family office side that I did not. I really saw the opportunity as a massive gap to give clients what they're looking for and do it in a way that's scalable because 90 plus 95, 98% of our lead flow today comes from social media, YouTube, LinkedIn, online,
Mm,
right? So for me, it was like, all right, I'm going to intentionally park myself at the front of the bus, but I could bring all the lead flow to the cows come home. But if there's no one to serve them and serve them well, it doesn't mean anything, right? And on the
yeah.
same side of that token, I think Jake and I have talked a lot about this to say, hey, what's the best way that we can set this up? How do we use our strengths, what we enjoy doing the most? And then how do we continue to repeat that and refine that and make that better? And that's kind of the stage we're in now.
I love it. That's awesome. I think that segues, if I will, into, I think what is probably an obvious question, but I want, Jake, Kyle, whomever it is, I've got a follow-up question to this, but I'd love to hear your story. We call this too many prospects. It's a good problem to have, but at one point that was not the case. So maybe walk us through. I think there was maybe a LinkedIn post at some point about comparing where you were to where you are now. And I think that not only establishes some ethos and saying like, hey, we have done a lot of the things right, but we've also done a lot of them wrong. But
Yeah.
here's where we've been, and here's where we are now. And so maybe walk us through the not the origin story, but rather where you're at now versus where you were, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago.
Jake, if you want to start with where we're at now, I'll kind of back into where we started and how we led to it.
Yeah, I it's funny. It's hard to talk about just where we're at now without kind of chuckling at looking back to where we were. But where we're at now, I'll start just on the front end. I mean, this is called Too Many Prospects, right? So given the tongue-in-cheek nature of the title of this webinar, I feel like we gotta address that first. So
Yeah.
we're at the point where we were starting to get like 70 to 90 intro call requests per month. And so I'll kind of rewind 2 months or even 3 months ago. We started putting more parameters around like who exactly can book time with Kyle for our explore calls. That was one of the first things we actually did do to divide and conquer was put Kyle on intro calls and put me on client service, right? We were doing all that together and it was too much. So even then, once we started building more and more momentum on the prospect side, we had to put more parameters around who could book and weed out people who maybe weren't serious. So now we're getting, Kyle, would you say 60 to 70 intro call requests a
Well,
month?
we had 23 last week. So
Yeah.
it's kind
So,
of it ebbs and flows.
yeah.
The good news now though, Cole, is I think what we did wrong in the beginning, or I would just say the hard part, right? You get a lot of leads and it sounds good, but
Yeah.
if 30% of those people aren't a fit,
Right.
then I'm wasting my time, they're wasting theirs, and I mean it's just not worth it, right? So
Yeah.
as Jake alluded to, we made it harder to book time on our calendar. But at the same time, even prior to that, we made content that was very specific to an individual audience, right? So we're talking
Right.
about things like healthcare for early
Yeah.
retirees, tax
Yeah.
planning for early retirees. It's not just here's what a Roth IRA is versus a traditional IRA. And we did a lot of that in the beginning where we'd get a lot of lead flow, but it wasn't the ideal client. So what we did over the years was just reverse engineer, okay, what are the questions that these people are asking us? What are the things that are front of mind for them? And I mean, even as early as today, Jake and I got an email from a client that said, "Hey, you should talk about this." Like a lot of these people find us online. They
Yeah.
wanted almost us to use them as a trivial case study and things that we
Yeah.
talk. But that's led to us now where, we have a client wait list that's about 90 days out. We're onboarding around 15 to 20 households a month just right now. We have
Yeah.
7 to 8 new people starting with us in a few weeks as far as just being able to handle the lead flow. And, for us, it's looking like over $100,000 a month just in financial planning fees. And then in addition to that, obviously we have the AUM stuff coming in, which can range. I think some months it might be 7 million, other months it might be 15 or 20, just depending on what happens. Because a
Yeah.
lot of these clients also are translating from planning fee clients to AUM. Again, we
Sure.
can get into all of that. But to answer your original question, let me just rewind for 2 seconds. It didn't start there. So we started with Ramsey leads. We're here in Franklin, Tennessee. Ramsey was what, Jake, two exits down from us at the time.
It hit a driver over there.
Yeah, right.
Jeez, Jake.
And
Man, that's awesome. Jake hits a long ball evidently. So
No, that's
congratulations.
Kyle. I'll do the approach shot, but he can hit the drive
There you
over there.
go.
I don't know, man. My long game's pretty weak too. But all that to be said, it was one of those things where to us that was the easy button. Like it's what we knew, so to speak.
Sure.
We had never actually done Ramsey leads, but I'm like, well, it can't be that hard. And it was just more of a I'm gonna outwork anybody. So I felt like I was on call 24/7. Jake can attest to this. A Ramsey lead would come in at 3 a.m. I'm texting them. I would probably call them at 6 a.m. Right. And it
Yeah.
was exhausting. We got about 70 leads though in a 12-month period. So much so that I'm sorry, 70 leads, 70 clients in the first 12 months. And of course, not all of those were ideal clients, but there's
Right.
actually a few of them that turned out to be pretty well. Somebody equated a Ramsey lead almost to a lottery ticket, whether it's Ramsey, Smart
Sure.
Asset, or anybody on
Yeah.
the bus. It was just, you just don't know what you're going to get. Right. So we felt like, look, there's got to be a better way. We always wanted to build a social media engine or the machine, I call it, Cole, but
Yeah.
it just takes time, right? I can make hundreds and videos and spend thousands of hours doing it with little to no results. And I think that's the reason why a lot of advisors throw the white towel in and say it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But it gets to a point now where I have been a little under the weather the last couple of weeks. We haven't made that much content as far as YouTube videos. I think we had 2 YouTube videos go out. We have our LinkedIn stuff, but we had some of the most leads we had come in book times last week. Like I said, 23 people booked time last week, and we aren't even really putting that much out there, right? So it's one of those things that it compounds over time. But for us, it was making that shift from, there's got to be a better way to do it and continue to refine it and try to make it better as time goes on.
Yeah, I think that there's so often a lot of times you guys have seen that cheesy, video or picture of the guy who's like digging and he's underground, he's dug this really long tunnel and he's like this is too hard, I quit, right? And like right on the other side of it, kind of that side view is like a whole bunch of treasure or diamonds or whatever it is. And it's like reality is like it is a grind when it comes to content creation and things along those lines. What helped you all, as you were grinding in those first, 100, 200, 300 videos or whatever it might be? What kept you going?
Uh, well, I'll say from my end, I mean, Kyle handles a lot of the video side of things, but just from a building out the structure, committing to the marketing plan, all of that stuff, it's you have to some degree fall in love with the process and focus on just, hey, if we do the right things over and over and over again, we know where it's going to lead. If you get too results oriented right away, you're going to be constantly disappointed because it just doesn't always show up in the first month or second month or third month. You have to really commit to the process and understand what the payoff is, which is we don't put very much content out for 2 or 3 weeks, and we have the most leads we've had in a 2 week period in the past 6 months.
It's like it's probably the same conversation that you're having with newer investors, right? It's like this is the value of
Yeah.
compound interest, right? It's like this is not a new concept. Rather, we're in an instant gratification world and trying to say like, hey, of course your first video is not going to go viral unless it is you as an advisor absolutely screwing up a client call or something that's like can go viral because you're being laughed at.
Oh, I have one thing to add to that.
Yeah.
So when it was just me, so technically I left Jackson in 2020. It was just me of the very shell of defining wealth in 2021.
Yeah.
Jake, I'm sure you remember this. I think I called you when it was
Mhm.
happening.
Yeah.
I had a TikTok that went viral. I wasn't even, I think it was like the first week I got registered. I had like 1 million views on it. And I had 63 people book time with me. You know how many people became clients? Zero.
Hmm.
And I think that taught me a valuable lesson front end, right? It was super exciting. Your first week, you're like, wow, all these book meetings, this is great. And I mean, granted, I had hardly any systems, hardly anything ready to go,
Right.
right? And I think what it taught me though is that there's a fundamental difference between success on the social media side, because I could sit here and make videos on YouTube or post on LinkedIn that are going to cast a wide net, but I much rather be specific to that audience. Where even if you look at our YouTube stuff or some of our LinkedIn stuff, we have good numbers, comparatively speaking, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's not outlandishly millions of views. And some of those videos and things we did in the beginning where we said, hey, reach out to us, let's have a conversation even if it was a specific video, if there was no information gathering on the front end or quantifying them out in the front end, it took a lot of time, energy, and effort. So I think what kept us going was the wins where you'd start to see like, oh, wow, this works. We got a great person out of this. So if we could just tweak this and make this better, or keep talking about this, but maybe in a different way, then
Yeah.
it just starts to compound over time. And I think that's what kept us kept us in it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are, Jake, you called it out. Like, what do you do on a Tuesday, right? Like, I think is like, I've heard it said that way. Like, what's your normal Tuesday? And I'll show you what success is going to look like for you. It shows your constitution on a Tuesday. And, as I think about that, I think about doing the next right thing. It's like, all right, let's just repeat the process. And if it doesn't work after this time horizon, let's cut it off. So, maybe talk me through the process, right? So like what I heard from the beginning of this conversation thus far is like it's one thing to have a whole bunch of prospects, it's another one to have the right prospects. And
Mhm.
so I heard, initially protect your time. We know not every client is going to be the right fit for defining wealth. How do we make certain that we're protecting Kyle and future advisors and Jake's time with people that are, either kicking the tires or not the right fit? How do we weed those out? And then I think the follow up question is to that, like when we have these right prospects coming in, maybe give us a little bit of the secret sauce of like what you're doing to take those from, hey, this person found us on YouTube and scheduled some time to, hey, we're now a planning client or we're now an advisory client. Give us the rundown of what that looks like.
Jake, I'll start and then I'll
Yeah.
pass it to you. So what we did on the booking link, and hopefully no, please don't do this, anybody on don't actually click submit. But if you went to our website and you went to fill out our form, we offer planning fees and we offer AUM, right? So we have a minimum planning fee that basically is like, hey, if you want your assets managed, do you want a one-time plan? Do you want an ongoing plan, or do you want wealth management or AUM? Obviously, our audience is going to understand what that is.
Sure.
So we walk them through a sequence, but it also says like, here's the fee. Like, please don't book time, like unless you're willing to pay this fee and if you're a fit for this.
Yeah.
That was part one of it, where it's very methodical of like you're not going to find time on our calendar unless you're that specific individual looking for that specific service, right? It's not like,
Yep.
hey, I ended up here and I want a one-time plan, but you're talking to me about AUM, right? So that's kind of part one of it. Part two, which changed and evolved with time though, Cole, is a lot of the clients coming to us when I hop on one of these calls and I'm talking to them. 90% of the time it's like, man, I've watched hours and hours of your videos, right? That started, I think, about a year or so ago, and then it just
Sure.
continues to snowball now where we get on the call and they're already almost pre-qualified.
They feel like they know you, right? They're already like, oh yeah, Kyle, I've spent all kinds of time with you. You don't know it, Kyle, but you
Right.
did. So
And but it's that takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of energy, that takes a lot of effort to see those results. But I think that's what made the shift for us now, where people are like, yeah, I've watched you for 2 years and now I'm just reaching out because I'm ready to retire. It was going to be you guys whenever I'm ready.
mm,
Um, So that was one of the things that I think has made a pretty large shift for people that actually end up on our calendar. A lot of times end up becoming a client.
Yeah.
The other thing that I say too to folks is, look, a lot of the people that find us online, whether it be LinkedIn, YouTube, doesn't matter where, you're not going to stumble on a very specific niche down Roth conversion. I have $3 million and I'm decided between Roth conversions and ACA or IRMA, right? Like, what do
Yeah.
I do? Um, Again, you might find your way there, but more often than not, most people at least know enough to be dangerous, which is what we hear a lot of times. So the other thing that we found, for at least for us, was I kind of call it dating before we can get married. That's why we offer the planning fees. It's a,
Yeah.
hey, you're thinking about retirement first and foremost, you want to know what's possible. But the second layer of that is, well, how do I optimize it? And a lot of times, again, for early retirees, it's taxes and health insurance, which is why we love you guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for us, it's, what we realize is half of these people that reach out to us either we're their first advisor or they've been, DIY by nature for most of the time, which is fundamentally different compared to a lot of advisors. So we were like, well, how do we create a service model that serves those people that is profitable for us now, where we're not giving away planning for free or not violently undercharging and being like, why are we wasting all of our time, energy, and effort doing this?
Yeah.
We're kind of, I was alluding to earlier, where we're at today, a lot of our new AUM is also coming from those original planning clients that are moving into wealth management. And a lot of it's about trust, right? You find us on a YouTube video, you're like, oh, okay, that sounds good. Then you find yourself watching us for 6 months. Then you find yourself booking time. Then you find yourself becoming ongoing planning client or a flat fee client, potentially. I'm not saying everybody starts there. Um, and then, 2 years later, all of a sudden, that person is in an ongoing relationship for us in the long term. So that's our goal. I think it's playing the long game,
Yeah.
but also trying to figure out ways where we can meet people just really wherever they are. Jake, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I would say it's not just the long game though, right? Like don't hear what Kyle's not saying because we've structured it to be profitable.
Yeah.
If we have an advisor team working in our walls that serves 150 clients, that's going to be a profitable book of business, even if they're all flat fee clients. They won't
Yep.
be, but even if they all were, we've structured it so that it's profitable. And a lot of these people, what they find is they don't, even if they come to us thinking, well, I need a one-time plan or I want ongoing planning, but I don't want wealth management. I want to retain control of my own assets. A lot of times, once you get through the planning process, they start to understand the depth that we're going to with planning, which is really their reservation with investment advisors is, well, I thought wealth advisors just did investments and you're going to
Yeah.
sell me, oh, I'll beat the market by X, Y, and Z% every year. But once they see, hey, you guys do a level of planning, you go to a certain depth, you address all these different topics that are on my mind and I'm concerned about, that I'm starting to see a future where I don't have to retire and then very quickly turn my attention to a computer screen where I'm looking at whatever Claude can tell me about health insurance or trying to run macros on my computer to rebalance my Fidelity portfolio. That's where they get to throughout this process is understanding that's not really what I want my retirement to look like. And
Yeah.
oh, by the way, if something happens to me or if my attention slips, the mistakes, the numbers get bigger with those mistakes. My spouse, my partner doesn't know what to do with this money if I'm gone. And this isn't really written down anywhere, right? And so there's a lot of factors that lead us into not just getting the client once they've had the explore call, but even if they've come into our services on a one-time plan or an ongoing planning basis, a lot of times that conversion to wealth management is where they end up because they just don't want to be staring at a computer screen during
Right.
retirement.
Yeah.
Yeah, people evolve into that even on the intro call. Like we've had people to reach out for one thing and they're
Yeah.
like, well, I didn't know you did all this. Here's the thing I would say though, Cole, like the people that find us online, whether it's YouTube, LinkedIn, doesn't matter. A lot of people coin the term YouTube University, so I kind of just use it back to them. I
Yeah.
tell people, look, my goal for you in retirement is that if you still want to spend all the hours you do on YouTube, great, have at it. But my
Yeah.
goal would be that you don't have to or feel like you have to anymore. I think the catalyst and fundamental thing for people reaching out to us is they want to make sure nothing gets missed. And from where we are from a client perspective today, most people are in good shape, right? Like I tell people, we can hang up this call and your retirement's probably gonna be fine, right? But there's a difference between good or good enough and great. And it's
Yeah.
not just in how do you optimize your plan, where I think a lot of advisors get stuck in like, I have to prove every dollar and cent. but also, well, what's it worth to you to not have to worry about this? Or,
Yeah.
you're on vacation trying to rebalance your portfolio, or you're glued to your your phone or your screen in retirement. It's just,
Yeah.
what are those things worth? So for us, it's, again, we're happy to meet people where they're at initially, but I think what happens with time, whether it's in an intro call, whether it's in the planning process, or whether it's after even a year or so, um, I think the only question afterwards is like, okay, I trust these guys. I know that they're delivering a lot of value to me. The only question really that remains is like, do I really want to do this myself?
Yeah.
And at that point, that's a pretty easy hurdle for us to get over at that point, to say like, hey, if you want to do it, great. We're here to help you. We're here to support you because it's still profitable. But more often than not, um, they end up giving us and doing everything with us.
Yeah, I love that for a variety of reasons. I think about, your job as an advisor is to look around corners for people, right? And you don't know what you don't know. And I'd rather work with someone who's done this hundreds of times as to me doing it for the first time, right?
Yeah.
Claude's good, but it can't squint. ChatGPT is awesome, but it can't tell you, it can't look around corners. It's going to use all historical. And so I think a lot of times the value that you can add is, being able to take someone. I think this is where content and all of those things come into such a value point, is they're already comfortable once they've met you. We talked about that. But I also think there's this element of being able to go, huh, like this person's a real person. They're not using jargon, and they're not saying I'm bringing, Main Street, Wall Street to Main Street or things like that. I'm just going to be a relatable human being. And so, I think that's a huge component. It's just like I'm just a real person that wants to do good planning, and there's an element of just being relational that is huge. I'd love to ask a question, as we were kind of talking about the process of, like, we've got a whole bunch of clients, whether it was before we had all of these prospects or now. What's a process? And Jake, maybe this is for you. I've dubbed you as the process guy. Tell me if that's wrong, but
Fair enough.
um, what's a process that you have built that has saved yours or Kyle's sanity? Like, what's something? It could be onboarding, hiring practice. It could be a workflow that you have within a CRM, like something that's super actionable that somebody could say, I'm gonna implement this as an advisor who wants to enter hypergrowth mode today. So, like, what's a process that saved your sanity?
Yeah. Well, everything that I say has been created as a process is also a workflow, so you can kind of just take those hand in hand.
Cool.
So one thing that when we kind of hit hypergrowth mode at first, our onboarding process was frankly not good. It was an F minus, as Kyle would like to say,
Oh boy.
about certain things. So when I say that, it's not that we didn't have a process. It's not that we didn't understand how to bring new people on. We knew what we wanted to do with them, but it wasn't structured in a way where they knew what was happening and when, and they didn't know what to expect from us.
Yeah.
We knew what we expected, and I would argue that what we deliver and what we were taking them through was better than 99% of advisors, but they didn't know that. And so we came up with that new framework, what we call Discover, Design, Deliver, right? I can thank Kyle for the alliteration there. We used to call it the Get Organized meeting, and now it's Discover. So
Like my boy
um,
Stevie Wonder, signed, seal, deliver. Now it's discover, design, deliver.
that's right.
There you
Yeah, the
go.
Stevie Wonder process. We should rebrand it to that. But we really we stick to that religiously, right? And what we do now is we have a kickoff call with every new client. I'm on all of these kickoff calls with new clients right now, and now that we have a team, their lead advisor is going to be on that call too, right? So we go into that call, we introduce ourselves. I introduce the team member they're going to work with, whether that's alongside me or exclusively with that team member.
Yeah.
And we answer any questions that they have about the onboarding process. We create space for them to get their questions out about the process. And then we book all three onboarding meetings right there and say, here's your discover meeting. 2 weeks later, here's your design meeting. 2 weeks later, here's your deliver meeting. And
Mhm.
obviously, depending on their schedule, it could be more than 2 weeks or slightly less. Um, but we're not leaving it to chance, just hoping that they understand there is a process. We're
Yeah.
showing them and telling them the process in that kickoff call and giving them a ton of clarity on what comes next, when are things due from you, what do we need before this meeting, what happens between discover and design, what exactly are we giving you in the deliver meeting. All of that is templated out and booked in that kickoff call with them so they know exactly what's happening. Because if you don't do that, Cole, then you're going to get emails 3 days after your Discover meeting. Like, when am I getting my plan? It's like,
Yeah.
well, we don't even have all of your information locked in. I still need X, Y, and Z from you. This gives you a better onboarding ramp for those clients. And frankly, it gives them a better experience.
Yeah, I think as I think about our growth at Move Health, as we've, in a similar season, I think that's why we all get along so well. We're like guys with young kids at home that are, founders that are running really, really hard, and well, we're having fun while we're doing it. I think as I think about that, I go, okay, this is the smallest that Move Health will ever be. It's the least painful now to put those processes in place now than it is in the future when we are 5, 10x, right? And so as I think about what we've talked about so far today, like I'm going to go alliteration. I'm going to say we said protect your time, right? Protect and then process, right? Like put it in place. It might seem silly when you are one person, using your defining wealth as an idea in an iPhone. Build the process now and have it so that when you go to onboard someone into it, they know exactly what's expected of them as an employee of the firm, and that your client knows exactly what to expect as they're walking through that. And so I think that's protect, process. We have to find another P that's out there. But I think as I think about, you know, when you are working with a very specific niche, and there's enough people out there, right? As we know at Move Health, there's 40 million people in this 55 to 64 window. And you guys might say, hey, we skew a little bit younger than that. But predominantly, you're working with folks that are, maybe our parents' age. I don't know how old your parents are, but they're all kind of having this conversation around I'd love to retire before age 65, but and there's kind of this conversation that then comes up around healthcare planning. And so I don't want this to be a Move Health infomercial, I promise to anybody that's listening. But I'd love to understand how this integrates and then how you have used this not only as an opportunity to better serve your current clients, but then also to prospect and say, hey, to our ideal client, like we see you. So maybe walk me through how you've interwoven it into the process, and then maybe a story if somebody said like this was our biggest concern, right? That's a personal story of mine I can share later, but give me maybe a story and how you've interwove it to the process.
Yeah, Jake, I'll start just kind of what
Mhm.
I'm hearing on the front end, and then you can talk through like how we implement it on the back end, which I think would be helpful. So I kind of alluded to this earlier, Cole, but in that early retirement market, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know, obviously, but
Sure.
it's am I crazy for doing this? I think there's a lot of golden handcuffs that are hard to walk away from, whether they
Yeah.
be equity compensation or whether they be benefits, right? There's a lot of different things, or some type of bonus structure. But a lot of people, the unknown beyond like, can I retire? 1A, 1B, and it's at least for most people, is taxes and health insurance. It just repeats
Yep.
itself almost every single time. It's like, oh, well, I'm gonna wait till 65, even though I'm good to go at 57, because I'm gonna wait till I get on Medicare. Well,
Yep.
why? Well, cost of health insurance. It's like, dude, you have $5 million. You spend, 8 grand a month. You could have retired 5 years ago, but you're gonna wait 7 more years. Like, now,
Right.
if that's what
Right.
you want to do, fine. Like, there's no big deal with that. We're not putting the proverbial gun to people's head and saying you got to pull the retirement ripcord. But I think because it's such an unknown that people just sort of go to the default, right? Or they'll
Yep.
default to Cobra, or they'll default to whatever it might be. And for us, I think because it's scary, because it's unknown, because they just don't know what that entails.
Right.
Um, or what that could cost, or that you could, actually control the cost of that with proper planning if you do it right. So for us on the front end, I think that's what we try to talk and walk through is give examples, give situations where, hey, look at you might be feeling this way, but there's actually a way to get around this or a way to plan for this accordingly. And it's maybe not so scary or not going to have such a detrimental impact on your plan as you think it might. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm hearing a lot on the front end. That's what we talk and walk through the planning process. Jake, do you want to give some examples of that on how we do it on the back end?
Yeah. So throughout our planning process, one of the things we'll do is sort of a gut check on what might healthcare cost if you were to leave.
Sure.
And that includes, kind of getting quotes from Move Health. It includes looking at what other options for health insurance do you have or health coverage or groups that you can be a part of that are sort of pooling that risk. Um, Thankfully, Cole, you and your team are familiar with all of those options, not just
Yeah.
ACA, and can
Yeah.
help out with that. But we try to bring those options to our people who come to us and say, what's the best fit for you based on your needs, and also what approximately is that going to cost? I think people are usually surprised that they may or may not get subsidies at certain income levels,
Yeah.
and they forget that in retirement, usually your tax rate, your income, your like ordinary income, your spending goes down,
Yep.
right? You're not, if you make $400,000 gross today, but you're only spending 200,000 in retirement, like your tax rate's going to go down,
Yeah.
right? And people don't really understand that. And that relates to the health insurance side too. They think it's going to be, 30, 40, 50 grand a year to supplement their health costs along with premiums. And it's usually just not. And so
Yeah.
we're able to open their eyes to what the real cost is. And I find that when you, even if they're even if you ask them straight up, like, what do you think premiums will cost in retirement? And they are not that far off. It's just the fact that it's an unknown.
Yeah.
So they maybe they think it's going to be, around 18 grand or 20 grand a year. Even if that's pretty close after we quote it out, it's just the fact that they don't know what that number is that could keep them from taking the step that they really ought to be taking, which is stepping into financial freedom and retirement, if that's their primary goal. So that's the way we use the partnership, and those are the things we're trying to accomplish with it is give them the clarity that they need around health insurance costs. And obviously, getting the right plan is a big part of that, but giving them that
Yeah.
clarity so it's not an unknown anymore.
Yeah.
Because those unknowns keep them from stepping into what they really should have, which is the good life in retirement.
Yeah, I love all of that. I think that there's so much value in just knowing the unknown, and we fear what we don't know. And so I've said oftentimes healthcare in a retirement plan, even to an advisor, many times is like, is they're sitting there going like, please don't ask me about health insurance. Please don't ask me about health insurance. Please, I know you're turning 65. Don't ask me about Medicare, right? And reality is it's treated as the boogeyman, and it's not until like Move Health or they start to do some research where they go like, hey, I'm going to turn the flashlight on and I'm going to shine it in that closet, and oh, guess what, it's only closed, there's nothing that's there, right? And so as I think about it from that perspective, I'm like, man, there's a boogeyman that's out there, and it's really not rooted in reality. And even if it is, Jake, from a planning perspective, even if it is $3,000 a month, at least we now know, and it's not scary then because we can just plan for it like anything else. It's just an expense, right? It might be a big one, it could be, but maybe there is, Kyle, to your point, like the difference between good and great. Maybe that person should avoid that Roth conversion that they're planning on doing, though it makes sense from a tax perspective. They're giving up a premium tax credit via the marketplace that's going to save them 20 grand over the next, year and a half as they look towards Medicare and things along those lines. And so I love that, and I think there's so much value to incorporating that. What are some other things? Maybe walk us through, if as you think about tech stack is a really popular word, and I know that we're at 40 minutes here and want to be thoughtful about that. Tech stack's a really popular word, so maybe walk us through like if you were an advisor who was looking to go enter growth mode. What are the bare bones tech stack that you're like, these are the things that we absolutely have to have in order for us to be successful and to grow? What is that early adopter tech stack? I know there's other things that are in there now that I'm sure are nice to haves, but are not requirements. For someone who's just looking to launch into this space, what's the bare bones, and maybe give us what you started with?
Oh man, there's a lot of directions I could take that in. I mean, shoot, you want to go like really, really bare bones, depending on whether you're a good planner or not and should be trusted to do it without all the tools that you could get. Uh, I think from a planning standpoint, you need a financial planning software. I hesitate to go without that.
Right.
But so if financial planning software for us, that's Right Capital.
Yep.
Um, I would say you probably want to need a CRM. I don't know that that's like absolutely needed, but if you don't have a good tracking system outside of it, you're going to be in trouble. So I'd probably say a CRM would be necessary there. You need a custodian and you need an email and a phone. Those are bare bones what you need.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science. It leaves a lot of things that are going to be done manually on your part, but that is absolutely bare bones what you got to get started with.
Super helpful.
Kyle, what would you add to that? Because I feel like I'm probably,
I was gonna say I might add a twist on that to you, Kyle. I
yeah.
might flip it to, from a bare bones perspective, you know, if you had no marketing budget, you're just getting started, you've got
Mm, yeah.
$3,000 in planning fees. Where do you kick off first? Like, where do you say, hey, I'm gonna see ROI here fast? Because you have to have that blend. Like, what's your quick hitters and then what's your long game?
Yeah, I mean, for us initially, the quick feel good hits for the Ramsey leads, right? I mean, it wasn't free. We paid for it while
Sure.
we built up the YouTube and the LinkedIn side. If I can go back in time, here's what I think. My head trash at the time was I need, and what we have now, which is great, right? But I need a $3,000 camera. I need multi-cam shots. I need my perfect home office set up to look great for a video. You don't need all that. You already have a lot of the tools from a planning
Yeah.
perspective. At least you should, if you're a great advisor. And even if you don't, right? I think the other thing too, like let's go even more bare bones, right? Let's rewind the clock to Kyle several years ago, where it's like, I want to serve this market. I've never served it, or maybe I have a couple of clients that are ideal clients for where I want to build my practice. Um, the good news is in today's world, you have so many other tools at your disposal to know what questions they're asking.
Yep.
Go and pretend that you are that individual and go into Claude or ChatGPT or whatever it is. I mean, make it super easy on yourself if you want and say, all right, what are the questions people are asking? Or like here's what I did in the beginning. I mean, obviously there's a lot of different things and ways to do this on YouTube, on LinkedIn, whatever, but pretend that you're your ideal client and go searching for those answers
Yeah.
and look what's out there and say, all right, well, how is this being delivered? Can I deliver it in a different way? What are the things I like? What are maybe some of the holes and gaps and opportunities? And I mean, all you need is a phone. I think everybody here has a phone. And
Yeah.
make it happen and just talk through it, right? So I think if nothing else, it will help you refine your story. It will help you refine all the things you're trying to do. And I think with any business for us, we have a program that's called Advisor GPS. And the reason I called it that was it's growth, profitability, scale, right? But you can have one of those. You can be hyper growth mode and hyper profitable, but if you're not scalable, good luck growing it,
Yeah.
right? You can be, hyper growth mode and scalable, but if you're not profitable, good luck maintaining that.
Yeah.
And you could be profitable and scalable, but if you don't need growth, well, good luck paying your bills because it doesn't matter. You're not gonna get to where you need to go. So all
Yeah.
that being said, for us, it's like I think it's an equation of multiple things. I would say a lot of advisors that start on what we've done from the content side, like don't hear what I'm not saying. It's a ton of work.
Yep.
I've basically put nonstop hours into it to get it to where it is today. My objective at this point, Cole, is to continue to build out that team, and we have done that. We have multiple
Yeah.
people on our team that help us in certain areas. I have no ego in it whatsoever. If anything, I'm like, I don't want to do all this. I'm not the best at this, but I'll
Yeah.
do it if it needs to get done. But I would start small. I would start and give yourself a ramp up period to say, hey, I'm going to film one video on my phone per week or I'm gonna talk and do a voice, you can turn that into a voice chat now that then makes a couple LinkedIn posts. Like it's
Yeah.
really that hard. I think a lot of advisors just get stuck in their head or they'll do
Mm.
it for a week or two or a month and then like this sucks, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
Give yourself the time to see it through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. If we can,
Mhm.
I'd love to hit you with a lightning round here. You guys didn't know this was coming. And there's going to be there's a question there that Michael's getting. I want to make sure we get to that as well. So we'll hit the lightning round. I'm gonna give you Michael's question here quickly, which is if you had the bare bones setup that Jake laid out, and there was one avenue, platform or software that would take that to the next level, what would that be? Right. So in addition to the bare bones, you're like, here's the other
Yeah.
thing that like I threw on top of this that really really threw some hot sauce on what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, Kyle mentioned AI. Our CRM has AI laid into it. So I'm going to kind of skip the AI piece. I think that's sort of table stakes for people with the
Yep.
tools that they have already.
Agreed.
I would say tax planning software. Everybody has a tax problem. Every question comes back to taxes in some way, shape, or form.
Sure.
Make sure if you're not an excellent tax planner already that you become one or hire one and get that as part of your tech stack so you can actually speak to the taxes in an accurate and repeatable way that keeps you out of like spreadsheets all day, every day. That would be the next thing I'd add.
I love it because I think that's also it does apply to every person, right? Like as we
Yeah.
think about Move Health, for your ideal client profile, makes a ton of sense. You use it on nearly every onboarding client because you are working
Yeah.
with that early retiree who's got that main pain point. But the tax side, it impacts everybody, right? And everybody wants to be tax wise and pay as little to the federal government that keeps them out of jail, right? So that's the goal there. I'd love to hit lightning round. So I'm gonna go with some one word answers for these. So let's do these here quickly. One word answers. What's the most? I'll let both of you answer here. What's the most overrated growth tactic?
Go, Jake.
Seminars.
Ooh.
Good one.
Um,
One to a couple. I don't like that. I like one to many.
Oddly enough, you know what? Efficiencies. And there's a reason why I say it that way.
Ooh, okay. We can unpack that shortly.
Okay.
But give me a quick. Why is efficiencies the overrated growth tactic?
Everybody sounds the same, right? Like I
Mhm.
could go and like I was just saying, use AI for the ideation, but people will take that 10 steps further, use AI for the script and sound like 7,500 other advisors out there when I log into LinkedIn or log into YouTube.
Yeah.
That doesn't sell anything. I believe personally there's value in the inefficiencies.
Yes.
And that's not just from a standpoint of making content, but when people
It's a
book time with
process.
us, I send a personalized video. Does that take me a heck of a lot of time? You better believe it. But
Yeah.
it saves me a heck of a lot of time on the back end. And I think it, helps us from a close rate perspective. So I just think don't hear what we're not saying. There's certainly value inefficiencies in building scale. But I think where people lose it and where clients start to feel the disconnect is whenever everything's so scalable, so automated, so AI that it's like, well, wait a minute, this is a relationship-based business. And how do we actually stand out from the crowd? Even in our situation, where most of our clients, although we have a lot of clients here in Tennessee, most of them are finding us online. How do we
Yeah.
make that feel um, unique to them?
Yeah, and I think every advisor would love to work with a 3, 4, $5 million early retiree. Like that's great. You might have a niche, but an early retiree walks through the door with $5 million and goes, "Hey, can I be a client?" You're not going to say no, right? And so everybody's kind of opining and working towards the same goal of working with this group of people. So being able to cut through the clutter. I love what you said about having to cut through the efficiency side and be inefficient on the things where it matters reminds me of like unreasonable hospitality. So, most underrated growth tactic, one word.
Content.
Mhm.
Let's say that
Uh,
back. I
I'll,
took the hard one first.
yeah, I'm gonna say LinkedIn.
Yeah,
I I hesitate to say that I didn't believe it would work, because that's not exactly true. But shout out to our head of content, Adam Noor,
he
for
just
getting.
he just hit the chat live. He said
Did he?
LinkedIn.
There he
You
is. I
guys are
didn't
on the
even know he
same
was in
page, man.
here. There you go, Adam. Shout out to you. I didn't even know you were in this thing. But um, yeah, I didn't know that it would work the way it did. We get many leads. Kyle can be more specific, but we get many leads a month from LinkedIn.
Love it.
Um, and Adam helps to make us sound good and different to that point.
I
Cole,
So
the
love
one
it.
thing about LinkedIn, real quick, I know this is lightning round. I'll be as lightning as I can here. It's not just that's where we find most of the talent that decides to come work with us and
yep.
be a part of our stuff.
Mm,
Jake and I get DMs every single day from advisors or people that are like, "Hey, how do I be a part of what you guys are
ah,
building?"
yeah,
That is the most underrated way for us, where it's like we could have gone and spent thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands on recruiting all the new talent to serve the clients really well.
right.
LinkedIn's been the our dark horse for that, where I wasn't anticipating it from a building out our team infrastructure. That's been a gold mine for us.
I love it. What's one meeting you'll never cancel?
Man, we'll never cancel.
One.
The Discover meeting.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
too
I'll never
important.
cancel.
Yeah.
Oh boy. An intro
Spoke.
call, I guess, for the most part for me.
How
Anytime
about
there's an
date night with my
exploratory.
wife?
There you
Yeah,
go. Good one. Jake wins. Jake
there you
wins
go.
though. I
Yeah.
love it. So I'd love to ask kind of one last question here, and it's a little bit cheeky. That's kind of my brand. I love being just a little bit provocative with a question. But if I gave each of you, and we'll run 30 seconds and we'll kind of wrap things up here, but if I
Mhm.
gave each of you a truth serum, right? You had to tell the truth. What's one thing advisors complain about that's actually their own fault when it comes to growth?
uh, saying there's not enough time. I know that's more than one word. I don't know if you're asking for one word
That's
in
great.
this
No, no, no,
example.
no. This can be multiple
Uh,
words now, Jake. We're
but
back to
just
multiple words.
we're
Many
back to
words do
multiple
truth.
words. Yeah, I mean, I think saying there's not enough time, right? I mean, time is constrained for everybody. Some people get more done with the time that they have. And so what you really have is a time management or calendar protection problem, or you're just doing things, pushing levers on your computer all day and not getting real work done. So
Mm.
that would be one thing that I think a lot of advisors complain about.
I I really really love that. Jake, you almost went down like the fitness influencer route of being like, we all got the same 24 hours, right?
Yeah.
Like,
No,
but
I don't like hearing that from people, but it is true technically to a certain extent.
it
So
is, and sometimes genuinely, when you're in growth mode, sometimes the answer is you just got to put in more time. You just got to work
yeah.
harder, right? And like that's not always awesome, but it does have a direct correlation. Your input has a direct correlation to the amount of output in most cases. So love that, Jake. Kyle, what about you?
I think a lot of advisors and a lot of people in general they lie to themselves, right? So when I was wholesaling or when I owned part of our previous firm when I was doing all the advisor recruiting, every advisory office I walked into, for the most part, which is weird because you're like, there's no way. I'm like, well, what's the goal here? What are you trying to build? Oh, I want to be $1 billion firm. And I'm looking around, I'm like, okay, you have one admin, you've been in the business for 27 years,
Mm,
you have less than 100 million, but you're telling me you want to be $1 billion firm. How are you going to do that? Right. And I'm not saying that to be rude. But
right.
my point is, you have to truly want it. Like what we're building is freaking hard. I'm exhausted. So is Jake. We've worked our tails off to build this. It's not as easy as it sounds, but it's not impossible. I think you have to be true to yourself with what you want, right? And I think a lot of people see certain things. They're like, I want that. But if you're not willing to put in the work to do it, like it's just never going to happen. I don't care what it is. I've seen too many advisors that think they're failing in certain areas. It's like, well, there's a fundamental difference between a lifestyle practice and, building what we're building that might have 100 employees in 3 years, right? Like there's
Yeah.
there's so many different routes and there's a lot of in-betweens there. But I think you just have to be in reality with yourself because a lot of advisors like I want to do this and it's like, okay, well, there's a trade-off to that. You can't leave at 3 o'clock every single Thursday, Friday during the summer and golf if you want to do it while, we're out here making content, doing all the things we're doing to make it happen. It's just
Yeah.
you're gonna get steamrolled. So you got to just be honest with yourself about what do you really truly want and are you willing and able to pay that trade-off? Otherwise, it's not going to happen. So anyway, that's my hard that's my hard truth, I guess, so to speak.
I love that. I think that's awesome. As I think about closing things out, we've
Mhm.
talked about protecting your time, right? Making certain that it's one thing to have a lot of prospects. It's another thing to have the right ones, right? And protecting your time to make certain that you're getting those people on your calendar. You can drive a funnel, and if you have growth and profit, you're not scalable. Oops, all those things. So protect your
Yep.
time. Have a process in place. I'd love to maybe just close it out with, we've talked about where you've gone, and I don't think you gave the full story. You kind of buried the lead. I think what was it, 2022, 2023? There was what, $3,000 in planning fees? Was that right?
And no, actually even worse. In January of 2024, Jake and I had to restart, and our revenue in January 24 was $2,412 or something like that. In
Wow.
February of 24, it was like $2,700. So we were moving up in the world. And that was
Yeah.
revenue
Big,
between two
big
people
dollar.
with families.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you've to whatever is $2,700, split it twice. There's no profit. To now, you're slated to do more than $1 million in planning fees. And so,
Oh yeah.
talk to us about not necessarily where you have been. Talk to us about what the next 2 years looks like for you all. We talked about 2024 to 2026. Where do you want to go? And how are you going to get there?
Well, for us, we want to help great people do great things. And that's not just from a standpoint of clients, that's also from a standpoint of having the right people on our team. I
Yeah.
think we've learned a lot of lessons over time where if you don't have the right people on your team, you're not going to get to where you want to go. You mentioned
Yeah.
that even the partnership stuff at the top of the call, right? If Jake and I are in a line, certainly not going anywhere. But even if you make the wrong hire, you're going to pay with that in time, energy, effort, a lot of things. So for us, it's The pendulum has shifted. I think the business is easier in a lot of ways, right? Because we have our machines, we have our things that are going, but
Yeah.
the challenges evolve, right? So for us right now, it's two things. One, when I get on a intro call, people see my face or they see Jake and like, am I to work with you guys? Well, okay, well now we gotta not just build that team, but we have to also
Yeah.
build trust in that team that they're gonna want to work with those people just as much as they'd want to work with us. Conversely, how do we continue to maintain the culture, maintain the standards that Jake and I have as we grow and evolve into a, probably somewhere in the next 3 years, we'll be somewhere around 75 to 100 people. Just is going to depend on, like, if we did
Yeah.
nothing different, we just maintain flow with new staff, with current lead flow, which I'd imagine is going to grow, but let's assume it stay the same. We're going to have, roughly 75 people in the next 36 months, give or take. So for us, it's like there's a challenge there, but I also am not blind to the fact that what I don't want to do, Cole, is just get there for the sake of the number and the sake of
Yeah.
hitting it
Yeah.
and being like, what just happened? Like, what did we miss along the way? Now, granted, we're going to make some mistakes, but for us, it's how do we get ahead of that and maintain the standards and just who we are, what we do, how we do it. And I think the only way we can truly do that is being hyper intentional about who we let on the island, both from a client perspective
Yeah.
and most importantly, from a who is serving those clients perspective.
Yeah.
That's my answer. Jake, what are your thoughts?
I love it. Take us home, Jake.
Yeah, whenever people ask this question, I jokingly tell them we'll be unrecognizable. Don't really worry about everything else, but we'll be unrecognizable from today. But I think the real answer is I'm more of a process-oriented person by nature, right? So Kyle and I, when we meet and talk about goals and what we want to do with this business, how many people are in the door, how much revenue's in the door, like we nail that down and we approach it from different ends, right? Kyle's got the goals and setting out what's our stretch goal, what's our on target goal. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking more, well, what's the process that we need to follow to get here? And so let's say in 3 years, right? That's the timeline you threw out there. We want to serve 1,000 families. That
Yeah.
means we have to add another 220 to 230 families per year.
Yeah.
And that's eminently doable for us. We are building the team and the processes to do that. We've got the lead flow to do it. We've got the recruiting side of new advisors and getting good people in the door to do it.
Yeah.
That's where we're headed. We want to help 1,000 families in the next 3 years. We want to help 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 families in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Um, that's where we're headed. And so the more people that we can help bring from uncertainty, lack of clarity on does this early retirement work for me to, hey, I've got total clarity, total confidence stepping into early retirement and really starting to live the good life that I am looking for. That's where we're headed. That's what we're doing.
I love it. I noticed there was no talk of a specific dollar amount or people or things
Yeah.
along those lines. It's like, hey,
Well,
here's
that's
here's
just me.
yeah, here's what we think it's going to support it, and that I think the take is, and I use this often, kind of close us out here, is that there's if you do good work and you are kind and gracious and loving and all that you do, you'll be successful. People want to work with that person. People want to work with the person that's solving problems, and so kudos to you all for continuing to build onward. As I say often with our team, is we've got a lot of work to do, but we're having fun while we're doing it. So grateful to partner with you all, today on this conversation and just in as we work together. But thank you for making the time, Jake, Kyle. Really, really appreciate it. I'll make a plug for these guys. They do have the GPS side of things where they've systematized and given a process for folks that are in that spot where they say, hey, I want to grow. Jake and Kyle do that. And then obviously here at Move Health, if you're an advisor who's working with these early retirees or folks that are in transition, that's what we do, healthcare planning for financial advisors and their clients. And so Josie's dropped the GPS side of things in there. Michael said it's gold, and all good. But I got to get my wetsuit on. We're starting the underwater basket weaving here in just a moment. But good to connect with you all. Thanks for making the time, guys. And everybody, thank you for joining.
Cole, thanks for having us,
Thank you,
brother.
Cole.
Really appreciate it.
See ya. Bye-bye.